He's written a couple different books, and he's actually included brain tap in one of his books, I think that. But let's all give a round of applause for Dr. Kelly Miller.
Hello. Yeah, we just revised the first book, 13 Secrets to Optimal, and we put a chapter on monitoring and managing stress, and brain tap is featured in it.
Thank you.
So I've never given this talk before, and this is actually an excerpt from a chapter called How Our Brain Cells Work, in a book that's pending publication called Saving Our Brains, Causes, Prevention, Treatment of Dementia and Alzheimer's. So the good news is the research shows that Alzheimer's can be prevented and reversed. And really, there's a lot of information on it, but it's the same thing that causes cardiovascular disease and diabetes is what's causing Alzheimer's. And it can be prevented, needs to be prevention. The big thing is because when we start to lose brain function, we lose body function. And as Dr. Hoffman had talked about earlier, and did a very good job with it, this is what I call my books, the 9 variables, and these are not original thoughts because I stole them from D.D. Palmer and I stole them from M.T. Morter and all this. I just put them all together. They didn't talk about genetic variants and environmental toxins. But when I do a consultation for the patient, this is part of my analysis. This is what I'm looking at. What's going on with this patient? What are their symptoms? What do we need to do? And I do functional medicine. I do testing to evaluate these different things, trying to create a priority. And of course, the greatest thing of all these is what you think, because our thinking determines our behavior and our choices and our lifestyle choices. So if we can change behavior, which we can with brain tap, can actually help modify behavior. Our brain is dynamic, we have neuroplasticity, and we can create a new thought pattern over a 21-day period that's reinforced again and again. Over a 90-day period, 84 days, we can create a new way of thinking. So with these 9 stressors, and these are, I guess, the thing I was talking about with Dr. Hoffman was talking about, is that our air and water are usually a stressor for us. And a stress causes inflammation, and it causes a response. And these responses I call the 7 sequelae of stress. So it's really about the books I wrote called Health Restoration, and it's a different aspect of that. One's on cardiovascular, one's on genetics and different things. But when we become stressed, we create an autonomic imbalance, and with a sympathetic dominance. So 80% of patients, when we have a new patient, part of our analysis is heart rate variability. How many people are doing heart rate variability here? Awesome. It's such a great tool. I wish I'd learned about it sooner. But 80%, right, guys? 80%, 75-80% of people are sympathetic dominant. Yeah? Everybody agree? I like what guys said yes. I like your yes. And what we find with the brain tap, when I started doing this, I thought I was telling Dr. Porter something he didn't know. I go, it's amazing with this thing, but I've never had a patient, sometimes right after it flips. That's what happened to Dr. Hoffman. She was like an 80-20 sympathetic. The instrument I use shows the sympathetic and parasympathetic in bars, relative strength, and then balance, and then also the power rating. It's a device called the Max Pulse. But she was like an 80-20 sympathetic, parasympathetic, and after this brain session, it went to a 60-40 parasympathetic. I mean, that just blew me away. I've never seen anything like that. And what we found with patients and then Dr. Porter goes, what, 3 treatments? Yeah, 3 treatments. So 3 treatments of brain tap, it will flip the sympathetic system. So one of my first books was on the hormone system. So what happens in the sympathetic response is we have cortisol. We have adrenaline, cortisol, adrenaline, cortisol, adrenaline, cortisol. That's the problem. It's supposed to be an emergency every once in a while. But literally our environment, the air we're breathing, the water we're drinking, if we're drinking any water, the food we're eating, the stuff we're listening to on the radio, what we're watching on TV, what we're surfing the internet with, is creating a fight-flight syndrome. And with that, cortisol, as cortisol is produced, it creates a depletion of the anabolic hormones, DHEA, testosterone, and estrogen, which are tissue building. That's repair. Okay? So it's actually putting us in a catabolic state where we are dying faster than we're repairing. So this is happening at a younger age. So our endocrine system is our first line of defense. So it produces, when we get stressed, we have inflammation. We produce cortisol because it's a natural anti-inflammatory. So as we do that, our adrenals become fatigued over time. So we develop, all these things are happening simultaneously. We develop micronutrient deficiencies because we are eating up the vitamin C. We might need glutathione because of this environmental toxin, or we may need selenium or whatever. We're using it up. And the more genetic variants we have, the faster we're going to use it up. See? Our blood gets sticky. We start to have glycocalyx damage. Does everybody know what the glycocalyx is?
No.
Okay. The glycocalyx is a mesh-like material that's on the inside of the endothelium. And when it's working, it's like Teflon. It keeps anything from sticking to the endothelium. So, interesting enough, two things that will cause that are trans fats and sugar will cause an inhibition of the glycocalyx. So when it happens, so we go to the fast food, burger, fries, and soda, that's depleted for 8 hours. Now we do it again, and we don't have that protection. The glycocalyx is there. And now the endothelium is damaged, and we have sticky blood, sticky LDLs going in there, oxidized LDLs. So if you have the right nutrition, it protects the glycocalyx. Basically, if you have nutrients, if you have enough good, it will counter the bad. So while we also have that is secretory IgA. So secretory IgA is its mucous membrane. Esophagus, stomach, and we have a mucous membrane because our stomach's pH is like 1 to 3, right? How is that not? Because if we put our hydrochloric acid, it'd burn a hole right through this floor, pH of 1. So that mucous membrane protects us, but it's also the protection against microorganisms. So it kills the bad guys, the bacteria and the virus. When we get under stress and our DHEA and cortisol becomes depleted, the secretory IgA thins. As it thins, the tight junctions, in the small intestines, open. And that's why we get leaky gut. So all this thing is happening. So we've all, we're learning more and more about the microbiome. And again, you're getting changes in the microbiome at the same time. And the other thing it does, it causes mitochondrial DNA damage. So we start to get energetic problems. So getting back to neurotransmitters. So this is just a big picture. So I'm a big picture kind of guy. So I'm trying to take us, what's the big picture, and then we're going to kind of hone it down. So when we do the brain tap, we know we're stimulating different waves, right? There's alpha waves, there's beta waves, delta waves. So each brain wave is created from and corresponds to specific neurons in a specific area of the brain that produce a specific neurotransmitter. So we are an electrical system, right? And we have an electromagnetic field, right? So the neurotransmitter is both chemical and electrical. So think of the wave as a reflection of that electrical field, right? So the frontal lobes create beta waves, or neurons that produce dopamine. Okay? So dopamine is up in the front, it's stimulatory, and that's what creates the beta waves. It's like the battery. Okay, it controls the voltage. It provides the power for our electrical system. Okay? So when we get dementia and Alzheimer's, we lose dopamine. Okay? You don't have any electricity for the brain to function. It determines our metabolism, affects the brain's ability to process information, and this information can be cognitive and physical in nature. So the parietal waves create alpha waves from the neurons that produce acetylcholine. Okay, this is also a stimulatory neurotransmitter. The acetylcholine is like a processor in our computer, right? It's the speed. Okay, so as we get age and we stay like our processors are slowing down, it's usually acetylcholine. It relates to firing of large neuronal networks. It's also instrumental in the integrity of the membrane, the nerve membrane, and myelin sheaths. And it provides the brain with adequate memory, storage, and processing. The temporal lobes create the theta wave from neurons that produce GABA. GABA is inhibitory. It controls the rhythm. So the GABA is important to getting all parts of the brain working together. It provides the brain with calmness. So the interesting thing about GABA, because part of so I got 15 minutes, part of the presentation I want to give you is that discussing not only the brain tap affects these wave patterns, so in effect they're affecting the neurotransmitters in that part of the brain. So everybody's getting that. So we're doing, and that in the brain tap they actually have alpha training, theta training, delta training, right? Did everybody know that? Okay. So you're actually reinforcing these neurotransmitters where there's a deficiency. And I just want to mention this, there's something called the Braverman questionnaire. Does anybody do the Braverman? Okay. So this is something you want to start looking at, and it's online. If you contact us, we'll get it, but it's an online, it's a questionnaire. And what it does is determines the dominant personality, the dominant neurotransmitter in an individual, and also deficiencies. Because how many times you hear a patient in the aging process, I just don't feel like myself anymore. I used to be this way, I used to be this way. Now this bothers me, that bothers me. Does anybody besides me have patients tell you that? Okay. So it's because these neurotransmitters, and the brain tap is so good at that, but what we're looking at is the more chronic sick a patient is, the more things we've got to do for them, right? So the brain tap is absolutely part of that foundational problem.